What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL list. I'm here to rank every NFL offense going into the 2019 NFL season from worst to best. And before I dive into my list, I just want to make sure that you guys know that I love every offense in the NFL. There are strengths to every offense in the NFL. There are weaknesses to every offense in the NFL. And me ranking your team's offense at the bottom of this list does not mean I hate your team, does not mean I hate your team's offense. It's just some offenses are better than others. Before my list, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this, and comment below your opinion. Do you think I'm an idiot for not putting your team higher on this list, or am I accurate on where I place your team on this list? Kicking off the list at number 32 as the worst offense, in my opinion, in the NFL going into the 2019 season is the Miami Dolphins. Now, I've said numerous times that I believe the Miami Dolphins are the least talented team in the NFL, and that does not show up more than on the offensive side of the football. You start with their quarterback position. It's rather going to be Fitzpatrick or Rosen, and either one I would not say is a upper echelon quarterback in the NFL. Fitzpatrick, I think, could provide them with sparks of greatness because he has that Fitz magic. And Josh Rosen, I'm just not sold on at this point in his career as a guy that can carry an offense by himself. Looking at their playmakers, I don't really see anybody that stands out. I do like Kenny Stills, but he's not a great number one wide receiver. He's more like a number two to me. I do like Kenyon Drake. Devontae Parker is hit and miss. You look at this offensive line, it's extremely weak, one of the worst in the NFL, even though Laramie Tunsil is a really nice left tackle. I do think the player to look out for this upcoming season is slot receiver Albert Wilson and how he's utilized within their new offensive system. The Miami Dolphins just don't have a ton of talent. The quarterback position isn't great, and the offensive line isn't going to be able to carry the running game or the passing game. At number 31, I have the Washington Redskins offense. Now, with the Washington Redskins, they are an old school approach to the offensive side of the football. They are going to run the football under Jay Gruden. They want to establish the run. We saw even an old man Adrian Peterson had success within this offense because I will say the Redskins, where their strength lies is in their rushing attack, and it is in their offensive line. A collective offensive line that, when healthy, which is the key, plays very well and can dictate the pace of play offensively. Now, where I have an issue with the Redskins offense, which is the reason why they rank so low, is because I don't see any targets that really jump out at me as number one go-to guys, and I don't know what we're going to get from their quarterback position. I do like Dwayne Haskins coming out of the draft, but he is not going to be a rookie quarterback to set the world on fire, especially with the surrounding wide receivers and options he has in the passing game. Jordan Reed is a nice tight end, but he's always injured. I hate their wide receiving core. I'm just going to be honest. Paul Richardson, he's not a great number one option. And outside of that, I don't really see anybody that jumps off the page. I know that they made a couple of selections in the draft, but until I see them play, I don't know what to expect. So overall, I think the Redskins' running game will be nice. Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson, Thompson, those running backs are nice. Tight ends, pretty good. But overall, when you come to the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the passing game, it's arguably the worst in the league when it comes to throwing the football. At number 30, I have the Baltimore Ravens led by second-year quarterback Lamar Jackson. This season, they did upgrade the running back position. They added Mark Ingram. He's going to be their starting running back. He's going to be their bell cow. Lamar Jackson is the biggest question about this offense. I do think that their running game is going to be similar to the way it was last year. I do think you're going to see Lamar running a lot. I do think Greg Roman does put him in good situations to run the football as a quarterback, and I do think he is creative when it comes to utilizing running backs with the option of Lamar Jackson running the football. The offensive line is solid. I wouldn't call it great. I wouldn't say it's bad either. I think it's in the middle of the league. Wide receiver wise, it's very intriguing because they added Marquise Brown in the draft. They have Willie Snead back from last season, who's going to be their slot receiver. But there's a lot of questions in terms of who's going to step up at that position. And overall, the biggest question is how does Lamar Jackson develop as a passer? Until we see him take that next step as a quarterback in terms of within the pocket as a thrower, I can't say that they're any better than one of the worst 5 offenses in the NFL. At number 29, I have the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are an offense that I think a lot of people are going to say this is a negative ranking, putting them at number 29. I do believe that this is a positive step of improvement for the Buffalo Bills offense. Considering the Bills offense last season was probably the worst on paper in terms of a combination between the playmakers and the offensive line. They improved 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen. They added 2 receivers that I think are going to have a big impact on this offense. And I do believe we're going to see progression from Josh Allen as a quarterback. Now, where I do see his progression coming is not as a downfield passer, because I do think we saw some of those things that he did very well at the college level in the NFL in his first season. So we're going to see Josh Allen run the ball. We're going to see him hit deep bombs down the field to John Brown and to Robert Foster. But where I think he's going to get better is in the short passing attack under Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. Adding a Cole Beasley to the slot position is going to be very good for him and his progression. And then also a TJ Yeldon in the passing attack as a running back, I think is going to be very positive as well. The offensive line is going to help Shady McCoy get back to his former self. And I could see the Bills being an offense that does surprise some people this season. But at the same time, I don't think that they're an offense that's going to be asked to be anything special because their defense is so good. At number 28, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, an offense that last season struggled heavily due to their quarterback play. I just think having a guy like Nick Foles there, who's a massive upgrade over Blake Bortles, is going to be something that improves their entire offense. The 2 elements of the game that I really love Nick Foles in is his ability to get rid of the ball quickly, and also his ability to stand in the pocket, take a hit to make a downfield throw. And those are 2 elements to the offense that I see getting a lot better for the Jaguars. I also think we could see a little bit better offensive line play, because in 2017, the offensive line for the Jaguars was excellent. But in 2018, it went way down, which would also help Leonard Fournette. Hopefully he can stay healthy because there's not much depth behind him. And from the wide receiver perspective, I think there's a lot of questions to be answered there. Is Keelan Cole going to step up and become that number 1 guy? Is Dede Westbrook going to step up and become that number 1 guy? The number 1 guy is the question. Who is that going to be? Also, the tight end position, not in love with it at all. I think that's an extreme weakness to this offense. But overall, John DeFilippo's worked with Nick Foles before. I think they will have some chemistry. I think we'll see really good games from the Jags offense. I think we'll also see a lot of inconsistency, which is the reason why they're here at number 28. At number 27, I have the Denver Broncos, an offense that's going to look a little bit different from the one last season, as Joe Flacco is going to be the quarterback, hopefully for the entire season if you're a Broncos fan. I do believe that the Broncos are still heavily going to rely on their running backs in their offense. Phillip Lindsay was a playmaker, the biggest playmaker by far on this offense a season ago, a home run hitter, and I think they still need to commit to him as their number 1 guy. I think Dalton Reisner is going to help. I think Juwan James is going to help. Emmanuel Sanders is a number 1 receiver in this league, and if he's not there, what do we see from Courtland Sutton in his second season? Does he elevate to a number 1 receiver, or does he get stuck as that number 2, number 3 quality guy? How do the wide receivers progress? How does Deshaun Hamilton progress? How does Courtland Sutton progress? I do think the offensive line is just more talented. I do like the running backs, but that passing game is the question for me. At number 26, I have the New York Giants led by Eli Manning. And Eli Manning's going to be having to look over his shoulder constantly, because he has right behind him now Daniel Jones, a legitimate threat to his job. This is a season for Eli Manning to prove the doubters wrong, to say, hey, This is my job until I want to retire. When looking at their scheme, I do like Pat Shurmur, their head coach as an offensive coach. Pat Shurmur puts his quarterback in good position to get rid of the football quickly, good in the short passing game, making things efficient for his quarterback. And I think Eli Manning will have games where you see a little bit of a glimpse of an old Eli, but there are other games where you're going to see extreme inconsistencies where you see him as the worst quarterback in football, which he might be. Of course, they have no Odell anymore. So they go out, they sign Golden Tate. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram. Those are the four guys that are going to need to get the football. What I don't see from this offense is a guy that can stretch the field and help out Eli. I think defenses are going to figure out quickly that they can play to the sticks or play all the short stuff and take that away without having to worry about a guy that can stretch the field. And I'm worried about that because that also means that Saquon Barkley, there's going to be 8 in the box with consistency. Now, Saquon's so good, it doesn't really matter. I will say that Kevin Zeitler will upgrade the offensive line. So I do see the Giants as an offense that's probably going to be about the same as last year. At number 25, Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray's Arizona Cardinals offense, which I'm extremely anticipating. As Kyler Murray said, I got it, Cliff's got it, but does everybody else have it? And to me, that's exactly what I question. What is this receiving core going to look like? How are they going to perform? How's Christian Kirk going to elevate his game? What are we going to see from a Hakeem Butler or an Andy Isabella? What is Larry Fitzgerald going to bring to this new offensive scheme? I do think David Johnson's going to have an excellent season. What's their offensive line going to be like? Because their offensive line, it was pretty awful last year. And I know there was a lot of injuries. There are a couple players that I do like. I like that they signed Marcus Gilbert at right tackle. I do like Justin Pugh. But I don't think this is one of the best offensive lines in football. It's probably amongst still the worst in the league. I question their receiving core. I question their offensive line. I love Kyler. I love David Johnson. I like Larry. And I like Cliff's offense, but I just need to see it on the field a little bit more, and I need to see what's going to happen and how these receivers perform within it for me to really get a sense of it, but I am looking forward to it for sure. At number 24, I have the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson's offense in Seattle. And really, I should rephrase that actually, because this isn't Russell Wilson's offense. This is Chris Carson, Rashad Penny's, and Brian Schottenheimer's running game offense. And that's the problem I have mostly with this offense. The Seahawks offense isn't going to burn you a ton with their passing attack. It's not an offense that wants to throw the ball a lot. It's an offense that wants to run the ball. And that is Brian Schottenheimer. The offensive line, I think, is still not great. I think it showed some moments, and I think it is a good run blocking offensive line, but pass blocking wise, that doesn't play into its strength when they want to pass the ball. So Russell Wilson is a great quarterback, obviously. I think their tight end position is going to be better this year just because they're going to be healthier. The running back position is extremely underrated for this team. But where I really question it is their receiving core. What's DK Metcalf going to bring to the NFL in his first season? A lot of people question his skills, but a lot of people are also big fans of him. Tyler Lockett, I think, can be a number one receiver. The question is, without Doug Baldwin, who steps up there as that second guy? Is it DK? Is it David Moore? Is it Jerron Brown? What do we see from the passing attack of the Seahawks? I just don't see enough weapons here passing-wise for me to be uber excited about this offense. But from a rushing attack perspective, it's still going to be one of the better ones in the league. At number 23, the Tennessee Titans offense. From a talent perspective, gotten better and better and better, but we haven't seen the production on the field. And that's because of the quarterback. Marcus is what's really holding back this offense on my list from being a lot higher. I think the receivers are underrated. I think Adam Humphries might be the best receiver on this team as soon as he steps foot on the football field. I think Corey Davis does have moments of being electrifying and being a number one receiver, but we don't see that consistency from him. Tajay Sharp is an interesting guy that I think has his moments. Taywan Taylor has his moments. They drafted A.J. Brown. That's 5 deep of pretty good receivers. Now, I'm not saying it's one of the best receiving cores in the league, but that's pretty good. And then you add in Delaney Walker back from injury, who's a good tight end still, and I think will still be good after this injury. Derrick Henry is a beast. Dion Lewis is a great pass catcher and a shifty complement to Derrick Henry. And their offensive line is now better with Roger Saffold coming in at guard. Marcus Mariota, man, it's your time. You need to step up. You need to perform. At number 22, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for some Bucs fans, they might be a little bit upset with this ranking due to the fact that the Bucs offense, I know, was excellent last year for pretty much the whole season. And it didn't really matter who their quarterback was. The problems with the Bucs offense that I have are mostly due to the fact that they're inconsistent. They don't have a running game. They lost some talented players. They lost Adam Humphries. They lost Deshaun Jackson. They also replaced Dirk Cutter with Bruce Arians. And I don't really think that's a big upgrade. A lot of people think that's an upgrade for me. In terms of a head coach, don't get me wrong, that's an upgrade. But in terms of an offensive coach, it's not a big upgrade. Relatively the same terms of thinkers, in terms of downfield passing attacks. And that's where I think you'll see the best of the Bucs offense is down the field. Jameis Winston attacking secondaries down the field with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and OJ Howard. They have a Cameron Brate who's a nice second tight end. The offensive line is pretty good pass blocking wise, but not very good run blocking wise. And they don't have a running back. Like, I wish they would have added a running back, and I'd be a lot more positive about the balance of this offense and the offense going forward. I think Jameis will have a decent year this year, but I'm not willing to say he's going to massively upgrade or progress this season. The Bucs are an interesting, intriguing offense that will have games where they'll light up the scoreboard, but they'll also have games where Jameis will throw a lot of interceptions or they just won't click, and you'll not see the same offense from one week to the other. At number 21, I have the Detroit Lions offense, an offense that the strength of this offense, I believe, is going to be the balance of this offense. Because whenever you have a coordinator like Darrell Bevell who's going to come in and establish the running game, and you also have a quarterback as talented as Matt Stafford, you're going to have inherent balance in both the passing game and the running game. And I think that's going to make it difficult on defenses to really key in on one thing. On the other side of that, I don't believe that the Lions really have a go-to weapon or a go-to player. I think Marvin Jones is nice. I think Kenny Golladay is nice. I like the secondary options of Danny Amendola and Jermaine Kearse as receivers. TJ Hawkinson is a promising young tight end who can really be nice as a receiver, but also as a blocker. And the offensive line is pretty good, but not great. What I really truly am trying to say about the Detroit Lions offense is that they're good, but nothing about it is great. Kerryon Johnson is the key to this offense. If Kerryon Johnson can break out and be an elite running back in this league, we're looking at a totally different offense going forward in 2019. That is going to be the difference between the Lions being a pretty good, like damn near elite offense to they're still not great and they're still kind of like the 2018 unit. And then we need to see Matt Stafford come back into form. Is Matt Stafford going to be the guy we saw last year, or is he going to be the old Matt Stafford? At number 20, I have the Oakland Raiders offense under John Gruden and Greg Olsen. The Oakland Raiders offense is going to be totally different from last season. They absolutely just tore down the entire 2018 offense, and they rebuilt it from the ground up. This offense, I believe, is going to be pretty good, and it has the opportunity to be excellent. It depends on Derek Carr. It all depends on Derek Carr. If Derek Carr can be what he was in that 2016 season, and if John Gruden can find a way to get Derek Carr, a very talented player, to upgrade his game, then we could see an offense that's really high scoring. It's difficult to handle. It has a first-round running back in Josh Jacobs who can catch the football out of the backfield. An offensive line that's improved with Trent Brown and Richie Incognito added to the mix. I think that the Raiders offense is maybe the most interesting. It can be really good. It has the players to be really good, but it could also not be very good. And that's the question I have about the Raiders, and that's why I ranked them here at number 20. At number 19, the New York Jets offense. The Jets offense is one that, like the Raiders, is going to be completely different. Obviously, adding a Le'Veon Bell to this team is going to completely change the dynamic of their offense, but then also changing the scheme entirely with Adam Gase as their new head coach. Sam Darnold's going into his second season. They added Kelechi Osemele in a trade with the Raiders. They added Jamison Crowder in the free agency. How is Le'Veon Bell after sitting out a whole season, and what do they get out of him? Is he Le'Veon Bell from the Steelers? Because in that case, this offense could be difficult to handle. And then Sam Darnold in his second season, how much of a jump does he take under Adam Gase? I think the offensive line will be better. I think the receiving core, healthy Anunwa will be nice. Hopefully, Robbie Anderson is better utilized as a downfield receiver. And I think Jamison Crowder is going to be the one that really develops a nice rapport with Sam Darnold as the slot receiver. This offense has every sort of dynamic. A guy that can stretch the field, a couple underneath receivers, a promising young tight end, a running back who can do it all, and a quarterback that's a franchise caliber quarterback, a young guy that's developing. It needs to take shape. We need to see it. And we need to see what Adam Gase is going to be able to do with these weapons. So I could see this offense being really, really good this season in 2019. But like the Raiders offense, there's just too many questions about it for me to put it any higher. At number 18, I have the Cincinnati Bengals offense, an offense that's going to look a little bit different, but has the same talent. I believe it's going to be an offense that is better because they have a Zach Taylor now as their head coach, who's an offensive-oriented head coach. Andy Dalton, I think, is going to be rejuvenated because of this offense. I think we're going to see Joe Mixon hit the next level. I think a healthy AJ Green is going to be huge. And Tyler Boyd obviously broke out last year. So this offense has a lot of weapons. Even Tyler Eifert when he's able to find the field. The offensive line is still a big question mark, especially with losing their first-round pick to injury so early in the offseason, but they'll be able to figure that out as training camp goes, and I do think that's the weakness of their offense. The Bengals are kind of around mediocre right now until we see them hit the field, until we see them stay healthy, and this new offense fully at 100%. At number 17, the Houston Texans offense. The Texans offense is one that has a lot of upper echelon talent that I believe carries the offense and carries the scheme. It also has a huge anchor. Their anchor is their offensive line, an offensive line that's one of the worst in the NFL and causes issues for this entire offense. It causes issues for Deshaun Watson in pass protection. It causes issues of an inconsistent running game. When Will Fuller's healthy, this is a completely more dynamic, different offense. Kiki Kote's a nice slot receiver. I like their receiving core. I like Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson has the capability of extending plays and making things happen when not a lot is there. Lamar Miller is not a great running back, but he's not bad either. I want to see what Foreman brings to the offense as well. The Texans are a top 10 offense, but when you include that offensive line, it just brings them so far down the list that I just can't get over that fact. At number 16, I have the Minnesota Vikings offense, an offense that has playmakers galore, like some of the upper echelon playmakers in the NFL. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen at wide receiver. You have Kyle Rudolph at tight end, and you have Dalvin Cook, a running back that I'm in love with going into this season. But we don't know how that offensive line is going to work and operate and how this offensive scheme is going to be different from the one last year. Obviously, John DeFilippo is gone. Kevin Stefanski took over last season, mid-season, and it improved. Like, they ran the football more. They're going to commit more to the running game, which I think is going to help. Garrett Bradbury as a draft pick is going to be huge. Adding Josh Klein, I think, is going to be an improvement. And I do see Kirk Cousins playing well. And it's not like he didn't play well last year. He actually played well last year, and a lot of people want to forget about that or not look at his stats and be like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. Is this offensive line going to be able to hold up? Are they an improvement or are they not an improvement? And does their running game, their balance improve? Is there less on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins? And does Dalvin Cook stay healthy? That's a huge factor. The other question I have about the Vikings offense is who's that third receiver? Who stands up? Who is going to be that guy? Who's that third option? Vikings, as good as they are from a playmaker standpoint, They also have a couple of questions and anchors, just like the Texans, that make me hold off from them being an elite offense. At number 15, I have the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. The Green Bay Packers are extremely interesting as an offense because they have a ton of questions, but they also give me a little bit of a kind of comfort in knowing that they have Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's what's allowing them to rank this high on this list because truthfully, they don't have a heck of a lot of talent. I really personally believe that Davante Adams is a top 10 receiver. I personally believe that Aaron Jones is one of the most underrated running backs in the league, and he could possibly have a breakout season this year. And I do believe that Matt LaFleur will improve this offense. But when it comes to everything else, I just don't know. Like, is Geronimo Allison going to be a number 2 option? Is he, because he's moving into the slot, is he going to be better there? Valdez-Scantling going to be the guy on the outside that they throw the ball deep to? Like, what's their receiving core outside of Davante Adams? Is Jimmy Graham still anything decent at tight end? From an offensive line perspective, David Bakhtiari is probably the best left tackle in the league. I think Brian Bulaga can still play. I think they improved adding Billy Turner to the guard position. And Corey Linsley is probably about a top 12 center in the league. I like certain aspects of this offense. And of course, they have Aaron Rodgers who will be able to carry the day. But at the same time, they do have more weaknesses than some of the elite offenses in the league. At number 14, I have the Chicago Bears offense under Matt Nagy with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback. I see a lot of good. I don't see a lot of great. I think Allen Robinson is good. Having complementary weapons of Anthony Miller, Taylor Gabriel, Riley Ridley, Cordell Patterson even. That's all good. That's all promising. That's all nice to have. They don't have a lot of eliteness. They have one of the better offensive minds in football. They have a quarterback that I think is going to improve with a second season under that system. And I'm a fan of Mitchell Trubisky, but also he has a lot of inconsistencies. And the offensive line, I think, is top 10 in the league. The running back position, Tariq Cohen is an awesome receiver, an awesome gadget player. David Montgomery, what is he going to be able to bring that Jordan Howard didn't? That's the question. Trey Burton's a nice tight end, but he's not elite. So for me, the Bears have a good offensive system with a lot of good players, but nothing that's great, which holds them back from being one of the best offenses in the league. But I do believe that this offense is going to improve due to the fact that Mitchell Trubisky is going to improve. At number 13, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, an offense that everybody wants to doubt. But let's be honest, the Pittsburgh Steelers are still a top 15 offense in this league, even if they don't have Antonio Brown, even if they don't have Le'Veon Bell. They still have James Conner at running back, who I think is going to have a very good season this year behind an offensive line that's still an elite unit. They have Ben Roethlisberger, who's a top 10 QB in the league. An offensive scheme that's been relatively the same over the years, whether it's been Todd Haley or Randy Fitchner now, it's been about the same. Nothing's really changed. Juju Smith-Schuster is a borderline top 10 receiver in the league. They have nice complementary weapons like Vance McDonald. I just don't think they're going to be as good as they used to be because they don't have Antonio Brown. They don't have Le'Veon Bell. They still have good talent though. And I think that people are sleeping on that talent. Less friction between players. There's going to be less questioning of who's getting the ball on what down and what situation. There's going to be less selfishness. And I think that's going to bring the best out of Ben Roethlisberger. So at the same time of them being less talented, they're going to be more in sync, and I think that kind of balances things out. So, yeah, no more Antonio Brown-Juju combination that's so scary, but to be a great offense, they don't necessarily need that as well. At number 12, I have the LA Chargers offense, an offense that I think when it comes to the playmakers, they have one of the top 5 offenses in the league. From Keenan Allen, who's an elite option at receiver, to Melvin Gordon, who's an elite option at running back. Mike Williams, I think, is going to have a huge season. Like, if I had to pick one number 2 receiver in the league who's going to elevate and become a borderline number 1, it's going to be Mike Williams. Hunter Henry is back. Very good tight end. Phillip Rivers is still a top 10 quarterback. Austin Eckler is a nice backup running back, but I haven't gotten to the offensive line. The offensive line is the weakness of this offense for sure. And I think Phillip Rivers makes up for a lot of that. His decision-making, his ability to get rid of the ball, his pre-snap recognition. I think the talent around Rivers they get over it, and they're still a very good offense. But if they had a better offensive line, they'd be a top 5, pretty much unstoppable unit. They just don't have that offensive line for me to be extremely confident in them putting up huge scores every week. The inconsistency lies in their offensive line, but their weapons are amongst the best in the NFL. At number 11, I have the Dallas Cowboys offense, an offense that I think is going to be surprisingly high on this list for a lot of people. But I do believe that their offensive line is going to get back to what it was in that 2016 season as an elite offensive line, like the best in the league or one of the best in the league. Because adding Travis Frederick back to this offense is going to be the biggest thing, the biggest acquisition that they have all offseason. He's arguably the best center in the game, and if he's not the best, he's number 2. This offensive line is going to be very, very good. And I think that's going to be able to dictate what they do offensively because they have Zeke in the backfield. They're going to be able to run the football. Dak Prescott, I think under Kellen Moore, is going to be better as a passer. And I think Kellen Moore is also this X factor of what the Cowboys are going to be, not only as an offense, but as a team. Amari Cooper is, I think, what they wanted Dez to be a couple seasons ago, but Dez just fell off. Now Amari Cooper is that elite option at wide receiver. Where their weaknesses lie are they don't really have the secondary option in the passing game. They have Amari Cooper. Of course, Zeke can catch some footballs, but Jason Witten isn't Jason Witten of 2010. Can Randall Cobb step up and be that guy? Can Michael Gallup be that guy down the field? Maybe you get a couple plays here and there from Tavon Austin, but I don't see anybody that's going to be consistent in that role, which makes me believe that this is a 3-headed attack in Zeke, Cooper, and Dak. And then outside of that, nothing is really extremely great, but that is enough for them to be one of the top 12-ish offenses in the NFL, coupled with a really good offensive line and a new scheme that I have a lot of faith in. At number 10, the Carolina Panthers, a healthy Cam Newton, and an offense that was really surging last season, early in the season when Cam Newton was healthy. I think they've improved, and I think they're going to get better. And the scary part is that Norv Turner kind of turned back the clock last season as an offensive mind. He brought a lot of creative, different things to the table that a lot of people are sleeping on going into this year. Cam Newton was playing his best football, I think, since his MVP season. Christian McCaffrey turned into a top 5 running back in football, and he's going to maintain that. He's a great receiver, a great mismatch in the receiving game and as a runner as well. The offensive line is going to be better because Matt Paredes is one of the best centers in the league. They have Darrell Williams back from injury, and if they can improve, protect Cam Newton better than what he's had in the past, man, the future of this offense is very promising. Looking at their wide receiving core, I think somebody is going to step up here because DJ Moore in his rookie season showed some flashes, but if he can put it all together, he can be a very nice number 1 option. Or if it's not him, it could possibly be Curtis Samuel, who has a lot of physical tools and showed some ability last year. Chris Hogan, Torrey Smith, these guys are nice veteran options as kind of complementary receiving options. Greg Olsen as well is back and hopefully healthy. I think the Panthers offense is probably the offense that's being the most slept on going into this season because of the improvement on the offensive line, because of the short amount that we saw them last year, but they were so dang good during that time. So for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing this Panthers offense with Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. At number 9, the San Francisco 49ers. Yep, the San Francisco 49ers offense. Jimmy Garoppolo-led offense. Kyle Shanahan as the offensive mind behind it. This offense is another offense that a lot of people are going to be like, oh, they're way too high. You haven't seen them perform. But I know what Kyle Shanahan's going to bring. He's going to bring one of the most creative, different, awesome offenses week in and week out. I know what George Kittle is going to bring. I know he's a beast. I know he's a mismatched nightmare, and I would argue the best tight end in football. From a receiving perspective, I think Marquise Goodwin is very good when he's healthy. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be a promising player, and we saw a ton of potential out of Dante Pettis. There's also options like Trent Taylor, who's a pretty underrated slot receiver when he was on the field, and he missed a lot of last season. The offensive line, I think, is being slept on as well. Joe Staley is still one of the best left tackles in the league. Weston Richburg's a good center. And Mike McGlinchey, I think, showed that he can be a good pro as well last season. The running backs are where I'm very intrigued because Kyle Juszczyk as the fullback is a weapon in himself. And then you go Jerick McKinnon, who they didn't get to use last year in this offense. Matt Breida really broke out last year. And then you add Tevin Coleman to the mix. That's a three-headed rushing receiving attack. If Jimmy Garoppolo can stay healthy in this offense, I know he's going to do well. And I know that Kyle Shanahan's going to bring the best out of each and every one of these players. And this is going to be a top 10 offense. At number 8, the LA Rams offense. Now, the Rams, I think a lot of people, this is one that people would probably be mad at or a little bit upset that the Rams aren't higher on this list. You have to remember that the Rams, the way they finished the season, still is really, really on the mind of a lot of people, including myself. Their interior offensive line is what really worries me about the decline of this offense, because that interior offensive line was already weak last year. And then they lose some players in that offensive line. The receiving core is still excellent, and getting Cooper Kupp back is going to be huge for this offense. No doubt about it. But what about Todd Gurley? Is he going to be able to stay healthy this year? So that question is kind of in my head. Maybe if Todd Gurley's fully healthy, I put them in the top 5. But because I don't really know that, I can't necessarily put them there. At number 7, I have the New England Patriots. And I just want to tell you to not doubt the Patriots offense going into 2019 just because Rob Gronkowski has retired. They still have Tom Brady and they still have Josh McDaniels, and that's all you really need at the end of the day. Not to mention they still have Julian Edelman, who is not going to be suspended this season, James White as one of the best receiving running backs in the league, Sony Michel, they added Damian Harris in the draft. They drafted N'Keal Harry, who I think is going to be utilized well within the slot in a similar way that they used Rob Gronkowski with his big body and his big frame. The Patriots have a plethora of a bunch of random weapons that nobody really expects will be anything great, but they will within this system because Belichick, they know how to find guys that fit the system very well. Josh McDaniels can get the best out of them. And of course, Tom Brady is executing the offense. This offensive line's arguably the best in football. They can switch from being a run-heavy attack to a pass-heavy attack any given week. The Patriots are still an extremely dangerous offense. And if they add Josh Gordon to the mix, this could be an elite offense in 2019. At number 6, I have the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck. The Indianapolis Colts, what I love about their offense is that it all starts up front with their offensive line. Their offensive line, I would say, is even going to get better in 2019. After Quentin Nelson was drafted in 2018, they formed one of the better units in 2018, surprisingly, protecting Andrew Luck and really gaining an effective running game. And what this offensive line has been able to do is create balance for Andrew Luck in this offense for the first time since he was drafted. Marlon Mack, I believe, is going to have a huge season in 2019. They, of course, have T.Y. Hilton, who's one of the best deep threats and forms one of the best combinations with Andrew Luck. Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle are a very nice tight end combination. And Devin Funchess, I believe, is going to be an addition that's huge for this offense in the red zone, as well as Paris Campbell, who adds some speed at the wide receiver position. Not to mention, I love Frank Reich as an offensive play caller, offensive scheme designer, for what he's done not only in Indianapolis in his short period as a head coach, but also what he did with Nick Foles and Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. The Colts are an awesome offense to look out for in 2019. Diving into the top 5, we start off with the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns offense, I would argue, has the potential to be the best offense in the NFL in 2019, just from the pure explosive standpoint of all the playmakers they have on their offense, all the speed they have on their offense, all the big play capability they have on their offense. And it all starts with Baker Mayfield going into his second season. What sort of jump can we see from Baker Mayfield when he has Odell Beckham Jr. on the football field, when he has Kareem Hunt in the backfield eventually when he comes back from his suspension, and then Freddie Kitchens taking over as the head coach will have even more influence over his offensive scheme. Couple a nice offensive scheme with a bunch of crazy athletes and playmakers, and the Cleveland Browns have one of the best offenses in football. They can run the football with the two-headed rushing attack and then throw in Duke Johnson as a potential receiver out of the backfield if they do decide to keep him. Jarvis Landry is a great slot receiver, one of the best in football. Odell Beckham Jr. can stretch the field and can do everything as a receiver. You have David Njoku, who's one of the fastest tight ends in football. The Cleveland Browns are going to be one of the most difficult offenses to stop from a mismatch standpoint this season in 2019. At number 4, the New Orleans Saints maintain as one of the best offenses in football going into 2019. Of course, they have Drew Brees and Sean Payton. And whenever you have Drew Brees and Sean Payton, even if I do believe, I've said it many times, that Drew Brees will regress in 2019, I still think there's no stopping or handling this offense from a week-to-week basis. It's still an excellent offense. You have two of the game's best playmakers at the wide receiver and running back position. Then you throw in the fact that the Saints have a top 5 offensive line, even despite the change at the center position, which I do think is going to hurt them a little bit initially. Then you add a Jared Cook as a secondary playmaker. He can work the middle of the field a little bit for Drew Brees. I do expect the Saints to go even more so towards the rushing attack, even more than they have the last couple of seasons, because I do think Sean Payton has noticed that Drew Brees has regressed in terms of his deep ball passing. I think that will force them to be more of a run-first team, which I think will make them more of a balanced team from an offense-defense perspective, and the fact that they might be in a little bit lower scoring games this year as opposed to the past. But even if that's the case, the Saints are still an excellent offense, one of the elite ones in the NFL. The biggest concern I do have about this offense is the fact that they don't really have a deep threat wide receiver who can stretch the field. Outside of that, this offense has no weakness. At number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles offense is going to be immensely better in 2019 than it was in 2018. Just starting off with the fact that Carson Wentz is back and he is healthy, and I expect him to have an absolutely massive season. You throw in there that the Eagles have a healthy, top-tier offensive line that's one of the top 3 in football. Then you have a top 3 tight end in Zach Ertz, a very good complement to Zach Ertz behind him. And then at the wide receiver position, you finally have added a deep threat target for Carson Wentz in Deshaun Jackson, who will open everything up for a healthier Alshon Jeffrey, a slot receiver in Nelson Aguilar. And basically, the Eagles have no weakness on their offense. If they have any real weakness, it's that they don't have a great running back. It's not like they don't have a good running back, because they traded for Jordan Howard, who's going to be great in those short yardage situations. Miles Sanders should be great in the passing game. Really, the Eagles are an excellent offense that I think are going to be a lot more explosive this season. I would say they're going to be similar to what they were in 2017. At number 2, the Atlanta Falcons offense has the capability of going out in 2019 and absolutely outperforming every other offense in the NFL. They have upgraded their offensive line immensely. They have drafted 2 players in the first round to have one of the only offensive lines in NFL history to have all 5 linemen be first round picks, which is extremely impressive. You have Matt Ryan, who's arguably the most underrated quarterback in the league, one of the elite passers in the league, had an excellent season last year and is going to carry that forward this season. Devontae Freeman is back and healthy. Julio Jones is the best receiver in football. Calvin Ridley's going into his second year and should elevate his game. Mohamed Sanu is great, not to mention all the things he can do with his tricks and his arm as well. So the Atlanta Falcons, Austin Hooper as well deserves a shout out for the great season he had in 2018. Atlanta has no weakness offensively. It's just a matter of putting it together. The one thing I'm really excited about is they have their best offensive coordinator in Dirk Cutter since Kyle Shanahan left. And at number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I want to put an asterisk beside this ranking, because if the Kansas City Chiefs do have Tyreek Hill, they're the best offense in football. If they do not have Tyreek Hill, I would say they go down this list quite a bit. Because any team that has Sammy Watkins as their number 1 wide receiver, I simply cannot trust to being the best offense in the league or like a top 5 offense. I would say they're probably in the top 6 or 7 without Tyreek Hill, but they're not number 1. Now, why are they number 1 with Tyreek Hill? Obviously, Tyreek Hill is a game-changing weapon because of his speed. So when you have Tyreek Hill on the field, he's automatically going to get double coverage. He's automatically going to get special attention, which opens up Travis Kelce underneath, Damian Williams underneath, Sammy Watkins, and all the other weapons that can work off of Tyreek Hill as that one huge game-breaking player that he is. Damian Williams, I think, is going to have a big season this year as the starting running back. They added Carlos Hyde for a bit of depth behind him. Travis Kelce is one of the best tight ends in football. And of course, Patrick Mahomes is amazing. Not to mention, Andy Reid is one of the best offensive coaches of all time. And their offensive line is really solid. I wouldn't say it's upper echelon, but it's very solid as well. The Chiefs had an insane offense last year. And if they have Tyreek Hill, it should carry over into 2019.